Paranormal Stories Part 3. If you've been following me for a while, you've probably heard about the time I first met Archangel Michael. However, it wouldn't be a paranormal series if I didn't include this. What's a little less known is what I experienced later that night, which I'll be sharing with you. In 2013, I lost my mom to cancer, and this caused a sudden spiritual awakening within me. It was like all of a sudden I realized that one day we were actually going to die, and I started to evaluate my life, and I seen myself as someone that was using alcohol for the past 15 years to drown out my reality because I had so much unhealed childhood trauma, and I was just full of anger and sadness and never really liked it here. And when my mom left, I was like, well, I never liked it here before, and now that she's gone, I really don't like it here. And over a short amount of time, I convinced myself that I was never going to be able to heal this pain that I was feeling in my heart. And so I just decided that, go with the motions of life and one day I'd be out of here. But 13 months later, my situation only seemed to get worse. It just felt like I had more pain in my heart than I did the day that my mom passed away. I was spending a lot of time in my garage back in those days, and I just asked myself this question on July 13th, 2014, that I never asked myself before, and that was, could you continue doing this for another 20 to 40 years? And the idea of that, I felt whatever was left of my heart sink into my stomach, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And the more I thought about my life and how it got to this point, the more angry I became at God. And it got to the point where I just said out loud, I wish I could exit this reality. And that's when, I heard a voice say, all you have to do is go start your car, come sit back down, and it'll all be over. And for the first time in 13 months, I felt like I was empowered about something, like I was in control, like I had some kind of power, and that was whether or not I existed in this reality. And so I went into a 45-minute deliberation, almost evaluating everything I've been through and asking myself if there was a point in continuing. And eventually I got to the point where I was just like, okay, yeah, I don't know what this life's all about, but I'm done playing. I picked up my keys, and just as I was in the upward motion, this word no was shouted at me, and I was in a detached garage. The garage door was shut, the side door was locked. My wife at the time never came out and bothered me when I was in my detached garage. And so when this no was shouted at me, like two people are talking in a room, like it terrified me, and it felt like time froze. I'll never forget this because it felt like I had only 1.5, 2 seconds, because I was turning my head to see where this shouting was coming from. But I had so many thoughts running through my head before I got there. I was like, first of all, I was like, hey, how did some guy get in my garage? Because I was fully expecting to see a physical human being there. And secondly, I thought, how the hell were they hearing my thoughts? And when I got there, at first glance, there was nothing there. But then I blinked, and there was like this wavy, clear energy. And the next thing I knew, the energy of Archangel Michael just poured all over, like just filled my entire being. I had no idea how I knew it was him, other than I felt his energy come into me. And then the next thing I know, there's more words shouted at me. And this voice sounded wavy, like it was coming from underwater. And what was really confusing was that it sounded like my dad's voice. And I thought to myself, well, my mom crossed over, so if anyone should have been talking to me, that should have been my mom. Like, how, my dad's still alive, how was he talking to me? But that was before I knew about our higher selves. So I sat back down, and I remember going back into the house for the first time, and it was like everything I was seeing was a miracle. It was like I was in 5D consciousness. It was just like the tiles on my kitchen floor that I loved, these big, massive white marble tiles. They just looked like the most magnificent thing I could ever see, and just the counters, and I was just so blown away to still be around. And then this feeling of wanting to barf came over me, and that's when I went for a walk. And at this point, I thought all the excitement was done for the day, but I would soon find out just how wrong I was. So I went to bed around 11:30 that night, which was really rare for me because at that time I wasn't sleeping. I was going to bed between 1 and 3 o'clock and waking up at, 5:36 in the morning to go to my 9 to 5. And around 1:30 in the middle of the night, I'm sleeping, but I hear this voice say, "We think you should open up your eyes." It was like echoing through me. I went from completely being asleep to opening up my eyes. And when I did, there was an individual about 12 to 14 inches away from my face. And I say individual, I mean a being, an ET being. Now, if you know anything about tall grays, it looked like that, except it was light brown, and its face was more like in a square shape, rounded on the edges, but in a square shape, like very fucking bizarre. And this freaked me out so bad that I gasped in uncontrollably. I was just like, and the next thing I know, my soul shoots out of my body. I'm floating there and I'm getting pushed into the corner. And I'm looking at we had a king size bed. My body's laying there. My wife at the time was sleeping beside me. And I'm watching this thing bent over like this. But I'm so terrified, I can't hear anything that this being is talking, like saying to me. And it just got to the point where it freaked me out so much that I just got sucked back into my body. And as I was going by this being, I could hear him speaking to me saying, "We're here to carve our own path." I would later have a session with a shaman where I asked him about that experience. And what he told me was that this was actually a space brother that, apparently my actions sent off some alarm bells to the cosmos. But this was a being that I'd incarnated with in a past life in a totally different race that he was still a part of, that was coming here to help support me. And so that was definitely the most wild, crazy day of my life, July 13th, 2014. Stay tuned for part 4.